April 16, 1972. Apollo 16, man's fifth lunar landing, sat silently on the pad awaiting its mission. Inside the astronaut quarters, its relaxed crew ate Sunday breakfast. John Young, a veteran of 3 previous space flights, was commander. Ken Mattingly, command module pilot, would conduct orbital experiments around the moon, while Charles Duke explored the lunar surface with Young. April 22nd. Young and Duke would find themselves strapped into a small electric car called the Rover, bouncing across the lunar plateau known as Descartes.
The old water bag is working super. This is going to be a good day, Charlie. Yow! Woo! Man, that's a great big skid. We're doing 10 clicks, Tony. Covered me with dust on that one.
As Young and Duke rode the bucking rover to the lunar formation called Stone Mountain, NASA geologist Farouk El-Baz wrote on a blackboard on Earth, "There is nothing so far removed from us to be beyond our reach, or so hidden that we cannot discover it." René Descartes. As John Young would later remark, Apollo 16 would certainly help prove that René Descartes was right.
Compacted. Almost like a freshly plowed field that's been rained on.
Yet less than 2 days before, it looked as though this would never happen. It was, in Young's words, a real cliffhanger. The Marshall Space Flight Center team was working on a launch vehicle gyroscope problem that threatened to scrub the mission. Less than an hour before liftoff, their advisory to the Kennedy Space Center launch team was go. The liftoff had been perfect. During the 3-day flight to lunar orbit, the problems encountered had been more annoyances than critical, such as paint flaking off the lunar module, and later a jammed antenna in one of the lunar module's several communication systems. All in all, it had been a quiet flight. April 19th. The burn into lunar orbit was right on.
Oh, Houston, Sweet 16 has arrived.
The subsequent maneuvers all went without a hitch. Then the next day, April 20th, Young and Duke undocked the lunar module preparatory to landing, leaving Mattingly in the command module.
But we got it done right here 5-9, Jim, and we're sailing free. Stand by one, Jim. Okay, we're on time.
The next maneuver was for Mattingly to burn the main engine of his spacecraft to put it into a circular orbit. But as the lunar module emerged from behind the moon...
No, sir. Copy, no, sir.
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, guys.
No circ. In preparing for the circularization burn, Mattingly had found apparent uncontrolled oscillations in the main engine's backup control system. Following mission rules, he did not make the burn.
How long do you think it's going to take them to get rendezvous, Jerry? I think your estimate of a couple of 3 reds.
With the backup system having trouble, only the primary system was known to be usable on the engine needed to get the astronauts out of lunar orbit and back to Earth. However, the lunar module engines could be used if the 2 spacecraft were docked. The first step in the problem-solving technique stabilize the situation in the safest manner, get the two spacecraft, which had separated, close enough together to dock if necessary.
To get them back together, get the things back that they want them, get them mentally prepared to do what they're going to do.
But now, don't take that as input. I'm talking out loud. I want to say something else I'm sure of.
I don't see any way we can continue on.
At that moment, the chances for a landing looked pretty slim. But you look at a problem step by step. Step 1 underway, you look at step 2. Analyze the problem as completely as possible within the time frame.
We should make sure that that's gone, but there's no way, no you don't have any other redundancy or other routes.
And in lunar orbit, Mattingly flew the command module to a rendezvous as Young talked him in.
Okay, fine. Why don't you tell me what to do there, John? Okay.
Word's coming back kind of initially from North American that they're suspecting a rate feedback. Building 45 is Jimmy to it.
The team was coming up to speed, not only at the Manned Spacecraft Center, but from MIT in Massachusetts to North American in Southern California. Isolate the trouble, simulate it, evaluate it.
You can't use it. If you get a broken wire, you don't know it's going to come back again.
See now like I'm drifting the other way. Not according to my needles. Okay, I'll believe your needles.
Of course, then you would have had no options. Okay. Go ahead. I mean, then it's full speed ahead.
I just don't much see how we can make it on this next rev. I think you guys ought to continue to work.
So you'd only do it if you had a failure on the primary. Well, how would you ever get the damn thing trimmed then?
I would. If I had a failure in a primary, I'd shut it down.
Well, we must be going in the right direction then. Yeah, you're going to get there.
Yeah, but I want you guys to go simulate it.
Isolate, simulate, evaluate. The results were coming in. It was beginning to pay off. The simulator tests and other data were showing that with the engine on, the oscillations would do no harm. Despite the earlier pessimism, it was beginning to look pretty good.
Okay, when you come up on AOS, on the next Rev 15, we'll give you a go or no-go for another try.
Manned Spacecraft Center Director Dr. Christopher C. Kraft, Jr. just came back into the control center after having attended a meeting by management people in one of the back rooms, and the situation is go for landing.
Well, have at it, babe. So we're going to try it.
You do have a go for another try here at PDI on Rev 16.
Once more, they would pass behind the moon. And on the next revolution, John Young and Charlie Duke would start their swift descent to the Descartes Plateau.
Okay, filter initialization looks good.
Bravo. Feel that beauty? Come on. 200. Pro. Pitch over. Pitch over.